Yesterday was the first day of Senate confirmation hearings for Health Secretary nominee RFK Jr. And a lot of his own words came back to bite him squarely in the ass.
You go for it, girl.
Take a look.
Did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted.
Did you say that it targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews
I quoted
and
a
Chinese?
study.
Did you say Lyme disease is a highly likely militarily engineered bioweapon?
I probably did say that.
How do you propose that we integrate those programs? Does Medicare pay more, Medicare pay less, Medicaid pay more, Medicaid pay less? How do we do that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure because I'm not in there. I do not know the answer to that.
Quote, I'm pro-choice. I don't think the government has any business telling people what they can or cannot do with their body. So you said that, right?
Yes.
When was it that you decided to sell out the values you've had your whole life in order to be given power by President Trump?
Senator, I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy.
Huh?
Did he not know what job he was applying for? I mean, because every one of these folks come in and they come in like they don't know that they're going to be asked these questions. They all look like they're in shock.
Yeah.
I don't know.
With the exception of Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
With the exception of Marco Rubio, who I know he knows what his job is all about. But what the hell is going on here?
What's
because
going
they're
on?
faking it. I think they're phonies. That's why. Like, you know, I understand why these Congress people bend over backwards for Trump, because they don't want to go back to their jobs as exterminators and undertakers or whatever it was they were doing. But why would a Kennedy, who comes from one of the richest, most effective families in the country, have to get on his knees to this guy? I do not understand it. Why does Elon
Because
Musk...
of the Kennedy that it is.
But why does Elon Musk,
power
who's
is
almost a
intoxicating.
trillionaire, have to kowtow to Donald Trump? What is it that he has over these people?
He's got the job.
Well, you know, there's such a thing as personal power. They do not have personal power. They may have power when they're sitting in those offices.
Yeah.
They're hypocrites and they're liars.
Well,
and that is not personal
He's
power.
a predator. That's what his own cousin said. Caroline said that yesterday when we all watched and read the word sheet let out reluctantly. She didn't want to speak out. But the moment that really got me was when Senator Warren, who's going to be joining us later, brought up something we had talked about yesterday. She said he could potentially, quote, when referring to RFK, kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it.
Yeah.
Caroline Kennedy also said he is willing to put anyone as prey as long as he benefits personally. He could not answer the question about refusing funds that he is getting right now. So he feeds all of his branding is about being an anti-vaxxer and creating skepticism and feeding off people's fear and tragedy. He writes books, podcasts, all this stuff. And then he gets a legal fee when he recommends these people to sue certain vaccine companies. He has made over $2.5 million in a year over that. All she said was, for the time you're in this office and for 4 years after, could you let us know you will not accept funds? Because that could color his decision making.
He
could not say that out loud. It doesn't matter. One, the Kennedys are not exactly thrilled with him. So he might be the black sheep.
Hey, watch it, Jim.
But sorry, but one other. Speaking of black, though, there's something in the Washington Post. He also has said in the past that vaccination schedules should be different for black and white people. There's no science that follows that, but he continually repeats it. And aside from the science lacking, there's another problem here. There's already medical hesitancy in a community that's been used by medicine and research before. So to further scare people into that is also a dangerous thing to say.
Well,
go ahead.
I was concerned about the comments he's made about African Americans. Of course, they're bizarre. But what I was really concerned about was the fact that he knew so little about Medicaid and Medicare.
Yeah, he doesn't know the difference.
This is why I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Don't you know? You know they're going to ask you.
But he's not qualified to answer because he has no medical background.
He should have looked something up.
He should have.
He could have gone to Google.
He He could have gone to Professor Google, but he did not go to
Yeah.
Professor Google. And so
My
I was
gosh.
concerned because if you look at the numbers, 150 million Americans are covered by Medicare and Medicaid. There are only about
Doesn't know the
335 million people in the United States. So we're talking about almost half of Americans are covered by Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act. He couldn't answer the simplest of questions, and he was being questioned by a physician who just happens to be a senator, right?
And a
so
Republican, wasn't it?
Senator Cassidy. And this is what was really scary. He said, he says he confused the two programs. He then also said that Medicaid has very high premiums and high deductibles.
Yeah.
Although the virtually free programs, neither of them have that. He also said about Medicaid that it's fully paid for by the federal government. It's not.
No.
States and federal taxpayers fund it. So the
Yeah.
lack of knowledge is terrifying for those of us, like my mom, who is covered by Medicare.
Yeah.
Listen, I've never been particularly impressed with RFK Jr., but I actually expected him to have that, like, Kennedy Riz, like, some level of charisma that would make, because he's had a following. Like, at one point, he was polling at 20% in the primary. I'm like, surely he's going to actually woo some people over and be kind of charming, and that was not there. Now, my more substantive critique with him is, in my opinion, the single greatest accomplishment of the first Trump administration was Operation Warp Speed, which got the COVID-19 vaccine in record time. He would have, if he were Health and Human Services Secretary then rather than Alex Azar, he would have been an impediment to that. He's somebody who has been deeply skeptical of vaccines. He is not somebody who I think would have supported that
But
effort.
Trump put that in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So why,
I think that
why
he's-
did Trump nominate
I
this
think
guy?
that he's very counter to problems that Donald Trump could find himself in a second term. And I think, listen, not everyone who's been in this role is a doctor, but they have some degree of policy experience, whether it was Javier Becerra, Alex Azar.
Public health.
In this,
Yeah, they have some
degree.
connection.
Yeah.
I was in watching Bill Cassidy question him, a physician and a Republican senator, he would be, just like Joni Ernst with Pete Hegseth, more qualified for that position than the person he's interviewing.
this is-
And I would just finally
Yeah, yeah.
say, if you are attracted to what he's talking about with our nutrition, which I think a lot of people are, there are so many more qualified people to make those changes.
Listen, we can make those changes in ourselves. Don't buy the stuff that has stuff in it you can't pronounce. If you can't pronounce it, don't put it in your mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?